It was slower, deeper, and too much for me, a true infidelity story. It started on a Thursday, the kind of ordinary, overlooked weekday that sneaks past like any other. But something shifted in the air that morning. I woke up next to a man I had loved for 8 years, a man I believed I knew down to the bone. And for the first time, I felt watched, not in a sinister way, just studied, analyzed as if he was trying to remember something about me he'd forgotten a long time ago. His name is Marcus, 35, driven, charming in that quiet, commanding way. He has this habit of pressing his lips together when he's concentrating. And for the first few years of our relationship, I thought it was adorable. Now, I can't even look at it without feeling a sharp, unwanted pang in my chest. He turned to me that morning, his hand brushing against my shoulder. "You good?" he asked. Simple words. Too simple? "Yeah," I said. "You?" He smiled. Of course, but I felt it, that pause, that tiny lag in his answer that didn't used to be there. For months, I'd been trying to push away the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. The late-night phone calls he'd take outside, the subtle shifts in his cologne, the sudden interest in fitness. A man I had to beg to take morning walks with me was now jogging every day before sunrise. And his phone, God, the phone. Always face down, always locked, always within arm's reach. It wasn't always like this. We met when we were both struggling grad students in New York. I was studying clinical psychology. He was knee-deep in business analytics. We clicked instantly. He was my safe space, my anchor. The man who brought me soup when I was sick and danced with me barefoot in the kitchen at midnight. The man who once cried in my arms because he didn't believe he'd ever be loved for who he truly was. I wish I could go back to that man. The one who looked at me like I was magic. Not the one I came to fear I didn't recognize anymore. It was about 3 weeks after that Thursday when everything unraveled. We were supposed to have date night. Something we hadn't done in a while because he was too busy with work. He texted me around 4 p.m. "Can't make it tonight. Client emergency. Rain check." I stared at the message for a long time. Not because I didn't believe him, because I did. That was the problem. I'd gotten so used to believing him without question, without doubt, even when my gut screamed at me that something was off. So I decided to follow him. I'd never done anything like that before. I'm not proud of it. But betrayal doesn't ask for permission. It just burrows its way in quietly until you're drowning in doubt. I parked across the street from the office building, where he said he'd be late working. Sat in my car for over an hour. No sign of him. I was just about to convince myself I was being crazy, paranoid, when I saw him, not walking toward the office, but walking out of a restaurant 2 blocks away. With her, she had long black hair, tall, thin. She reached for his hand. He let her. My heart didn't break. It disintegrated, quietly, like paper in fire. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I needed to know. I needed more. So I did something I never imagined I'd do. I hired a private investigator. In 2 days, I had photos, receipts, a timeline. 6 months. He had been seeing her for 6 whole months. Her name was Talia. She worked in his firm's legal department. Divorced. No kids. They had met during a company retreat in Miami. And the investigator, he sent me one final video file. He warned me not to open it if I wasn't ready. But of course, I opened it. It was them. In a hotel room. The angle was high, probably a ceiling camera. I never asked how he got it, but I watched. I made myself watch, not because I wanted to hurt myself, because I needed to kill the hope. I needed to see who he was now, without the illusion of love. It wasn't just sex. That's what gutted me the most. It was slower. Deeper. He kissed her like he used to kiss me in the early days. He touched her face, whispered in her ear. He made love to her, the way he hadn't made love to me in over a year. I didn't cry that night. I just sat in the shower for hours, hot water blistering my skin, trying to scrub off the feeling of being unwanted. Unseen, the next morning I confronted him. I laid everything out, the pictures, the timestamps, the video. He didn't deny it, didn't even try. He just sat there, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he whispered. I laughed. I actually laughed. "What part? The dinner dates, the hotel rooms, or the way you touched her like she was the air you breathed?" He looked up, eyes red. "I was lonely. That's when I broke. Lonely. While I was right here. While I was cooking for you, folding your clothes, waiting for you to come home and pretend to be tired so you didn't have to touch me. I was sleeping next to you, Marcus. I was there. I never left." He didn't speak. The silence was louder than a scream. I left that night. I packed a bag and went to my sister's place 2 cities away. I couldn't be near him. I couldn't smell our sheets or see our pictures or sit on the couch where I used to wait for him to come home. I spent weeks floating, eating only when my sister forced me, sleeping with the TV on so I wouldn't lie awake wondering what I did wrong. But here's the part no one tells you about betrayal. It doesn't just break your heart. It rewrites every memory. It makes you question every laugh, every "I love you." Every moment you thought was real. It makes you hate yourself for not seeing it sooner. 3 months passed, then came the message. "Can we talk?" I ignored it. Then a second one. "Please, just once." So I agreed. One final conversation, not for him, for me. We met in a park of all places. Neutral ground, I guess. He looked older. Tired. I don't know if it was guilt or consequence, but he didn't look like the man I used to love. He looked hollow. "I ended it," he said. I nodded. "Too late." "I know." He looked at me for a long time, then asked a question I'll never forget. "Do you still love me?" I wanted to say no. God, I wanted to scream it, but I said the truth. "Yes, but not in a way that saves us." He cried. For the first time since the day I found out, he cried. But I didn't hug him. I didn't reach out. I let him feel what he made me feel. Alone, I walked away. That should be the end. But pain doesn't leave cleanly. 6 weeks later, I started seeing a therapist, not for him, for me. I needed to understand why I felt like I had failed, why I still carried the weight of someone else's betrayal like it was my burden to bear. And I learned something. Sometimes, we love people who are not equipped to love us back the way we deserve. And that's not a reflection of our worth. It's a reflection of their limits. Marcus didn't cheat because I lacked something. He cheated because he did. I still get messages from him sometimes. Birthdays, holidays, quiet, sad apologies that come too late and mean too little. But I'm not the same woman anymore. I've rebuilt my life piece by painful piece. I laugh again. I sleep through the night. I look in the mirror and see someone stronger, wiser, softer somehow, but also sharper. And I've started dating again. Not because I'm looking for someone to fix me, but because I finally realized I was never broken, just bruised. Love doesn't always conquer betrayal. Sometimes, love simply survives it. And that's enough. Because I am enough. The seasons changed while I was still learning how to breathe without him. The leaves turned amber and red, then fell, and still, I was sorting through the debris of my trust. Healing isn't linear, it's messy. Some days I felt like I had it all figured out. Other days I couldn't get out of bed without replaying that hotel video in my mind, like a punishment I didn't deserve. I was surviving, but I wasn't living. One afternoon, about 6 months after I left Marcus, I ran into someone I hadn't seen in years, Elijah. We'd gone to undergrad together. He had this warm, grounded energy, the kind that makes you feel like no matter how far you've drifted, someone still remembers who you used to be. He asked how I was, and I gave the usual polite lie. But Elijah didn't buy it. We started grabbing coffee, just as friends. I told myself that's all it was. But for the first time in a long time, I found myself laughing without guilt, smiling without force. He never pressed me about Marcus. He let me come undone in my own time. And when I finally told him everything, he didn't flinch. He didn't pity me. He just listened. "You didn't deserve that," he said simply. "But you deserve to know." His words stuck with me like a bomb. Still, I was hesitant. Scar tissue doesn't stretch easily, and every time Elijah held my hand or looked at me a little too long, I would tense up. Not because I didn't want him, but because I was afraid to want anyone again. That's when Marcus showed up again. He was waiting outside my apartment building one evening. I was coming home from a grocery run, laughing about something Elijah had just texted me. My arms were full of bags, and when I saw Marcus leaning against his car, that laughter died in my throat. He looked desperate, haggard, and angry, but not at me. "I need to talk to you," he said. I sighed. "We've talked, Marcus." "No, you talked. I listened. But now you need to know something." I didn't invite him in. I stood there, bags in hand, heart racing, ready to run or scream or both. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded photo. I almost didn't take it, but curiosity is a cruel seductress. It was a picture of Talia, pregnant. My stomach dropped. "She's saying it's mine," he said, "but the dates don't line up. And you're telling me this because I think she set me up." I blinked, stunned. "What are you talking about?" He rubbed his face. "She told me she was on birth control. She wasn't. She knew I was married. She wanted more. She started talking about leaving you and building a life with her. I told her I wasn't ready for that. A week later, she told me she was pregnant, but the timing, it's off. I hadn't seen her in almost 2 months when she told me." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "I'm not your therapist. I'm not your wife anymore. Because I think she's dangerous." I stared at him. For the first time, I wasn't seeing the man I once loved. I was seeing a scared boy who had finally realized he'd burned down his own house and had no one left to blame. "She's not my problem," I said and walked past him. But something didn't sit right. That night, I dug deeper, searched her name, looked through old emails and threads the PI had sent me that I hadn't bothered to open back then. I found something strange. A court case. From 2 years ago. A restraining order filed by a previous partner. Emotional manipulation. False paternity claim. The similarities were eerie. It hit me. Marcus didn't just cheat on me. He got played. I should have felt vindicated. But all I felt was exhaustion. I blocked his number the next day. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally did, about myself. Meanwhile, Elijah was still there, still showing up, still patient. One night, I let him in. Not physically, but emotionally. We sat on my balcony, wine glasses in hand, the city humming quietly below us. "I need to tell you something," I said. He looked at me, the way people do when they're ready to hold whatever burden you hand them. "I'm terrified," I whispered. "That I'll never be able to trust someone again. That I'll always be looking over my shoulder. That the next man I let in might destroy me too." He nodded, slow and steady, then said something I'll never forget. "I'm not asking you to trust me right now. I'm asking you to let me earn it." That night, he didn't kiss me. He just held my hand. It was the safest I'd felt in years. Time passed. Seasons changed again. I found a new job at a private clinic. Started a trauma support group for women. I told my story. Piece by painful piece. Not because I wanted sympathy, but because I wanted someone out there to know they weren't alone. One woman in the group said something that stuck with me. "Sometimes we mourn who we thought they were, longer than we mourn the relationship itself." She was right. I wasn't grieving Marcus anymore. I was grieving the version of me that believed I was safe with him. But grief isn't a prison. It's a tunnel. And I was finally on the other side. It took almost a year for me to let Elijah all the way in. And when we did, when we finally crossed that line, it wasn't fireworks or chaos. It was something deeper. It was slower. It was safer. It was still. And it was everything I never thought I'd have again. Not because he was perfect, but because I was whole. So if you've been there, if you're there now, please know this: you will feel like love is a lie. You will think you'll never breathe normally again. You will doubt every kind gesture, every loving gaze. But one day, you'll wake up, and you won't hurt as much. And someone will hold your hand, not to control you, but to anchor you. And you'll remember that you survived the worst day of your life. And you're still here, still standing, still worthy, still more than enough. The first time Elijah touched my face, I flinched, not because it hurt, not because he did anything wrong, but because touch had become a memory of violation, of betrayal, of lips and hands that once promised forever and delivered something darker. He didn't pull away. He just whispered, "It's okay. You don't have to be ready. Not yet." And for the first time in almost a year, I cried in front of someone without shame. He didn't wipe my tears away. He let them fall. Because healing isn't about someone rescuing you. It's about someone witnessing you, messy, raw, unfinished, and staying anyway. Weeks turned into months, and my world slowly started to look different. Not because Marcus disappeared, but because his shadow no longer shaped my light. Then one afternoon, out of nowhere, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, no return address. The first line read, "I know I'm the last person you want to hear from." It was from Talia. I stared at the page, confused, wary. My first instinct was to rip it up, but something made me keep reading. She wrote about the affair, how it started, why she pursued him. She admitted she knew he was married, that she saw pictures of me on his phone. That part of her hated me for no reason other than I existed. She said she lied about the pregnancy, that it wasn't real, that it was a desperate attempt to hold on to something that was never hers. But then she wrote something that stopped me cold. "He told me things about you." Not cruel things. The opposite, actually. He said you were the best thing that ever happened to him, but that he felt small next to you, like he didn't deserve you. And the moment I heard that, I realized I wasn't winning. I was just being used to fill a hole I didn't create. She ended the letter with an apology. Not an excuse, not a justification. Just a quiet acknowledgement that sometimes we're not only betrayed by others, we betray ourselves too. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time, staring at that letter, my fingers trembling. Then I burned it, not out of anger, but release. Some stories don't need to be kept. Some apologies don't need to live in drawers or journals. They need to disappear. Because forgiveness isn't always a conversation. It's a decision. And I chose peace, not for her, not even for Marcus, but for me. A few months later, I stood on a rooftop with Elijah as the sun set behind the city skyline. He handed me a mug of tea and kissed the top of my head. I looked at him, not just the man in front of me, but what he represented. Stability, safety, a future that wasn't perfect but was honest. "I love you," he said. I looked him in the eye. "I believe you." And those words meant more than any "I love you" ever had, because belief, that's what had been broken. But now, it was slowly, miraculously, being rebuilt, brick by brick, touch by touch, promise by quiet, consistent promise. And for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't afraid. Not of losing him, not of being hurt again, not of starting over. Because I knew, even if it all fell apart, I would still be okay. Because I had already survived the worst. Because I found out who I was in the wreckage. Because I chose me. And that was the real love story all along. You think the worst part is the betrayal, but it's not. The worst part is what betrayal steals from you. The quiet things, the soft things, the belief in the little moments. Like a late text that used to mean, "I miss you." but now makes you wonder if it means I'm with someone else. The worst part is how it changes your reflection, how you look in the mirror and wonder what you miss it, what you weren't, what you'll never be again. But healing is slower, deeper, and sometimes too much for the old version of you to carry. So she dies, and in her place a new woman rises, not bitter, not naive, but wise, clear, undefinable. She doesn't look for love to save her. She builds her own peace, and then, if love comes, it must earn its place next to her fire, not inside it. And fade into scenes of her journaling, laughing at a dinner table, walking down a city street alone, but not lonely. Voiceover continues, stronger now. I don't tell this story for closure. I don't tell it to shame him. And I don't tell it to relive the pain. I tell it because someone out there is staring at a locked phone, or an empty side of the bed, or a voice that no longer sounds like love. And she needs to hear this. You are not broken. You are awakening. The lie was never your worth. The lie was what they convinced you to settle for. Her visual, she walks up to a door. Elijah opens it. No words, just a gentle look. He holds out his hand. Voiceover, soft, final lined. And when something real finally finds you, it will feel slower. It will reach deeper. And it will never, ever be too much for you. Her music swells, then slowly fades. Screen fades to black. Hair text on screen in white serif font. Broken trust, diaries, real stories. Real scars. Real healing. There's a strange kind of silence after a storm. Not peace. Not yet. Just absence. The absence of chaos. Of screaming. Of pretending. Of pain disguised as passion. I remember walking through my apartment months after it all ended and hearing nothing. Not even the hum of my own heartbeat. The kind of quiet that feels like standing in the wreckage of your own life, barefoot, not knowing where to step next. But slowly the silence turned into space, and the space became possibility. Not for someone else, for me. I started saying yes to things I used to shrink away from. Lunches with friends I had neglected, walks by myself without music in my ears, just the rhythm of my own steps grounding me. Books I had bought but never opened. Journals I filled not with pain but plans. And then there was the moment. One I'll never forget. I was standing in the mirror, fixing my hair. No makeup, just skin, just me. And I smiled. It wasn't performative. It wasn't for anyone else. It wasn't because I was in love again, or healed completely, or thriving perfectly. It was because I saw her again. The woman before the lie. The one who loved with both hands open. The one who didn't flinch at her own reflection. She was still there. A little bruised, a little wiser, but alive. And for the first time, I didn't want to erase what happened. Because without it, I wouldn't have returned to myself. We all carry scars, some visible, some buried deep where no one sees. But they're not shameful. They're proof that we were here, that we felt deeply, that we chose love even when it hurt, and that we survived it. There's a version of you on the other side of betrayal that is softer and stronger. She doesn't chase answers anymore. She is the answer, and the love that finds her next, it will be slower, deeper, and never too much, because it will have to match the fire she lit in herself when the world tried to put her out. Months passed. One night, I found Marcus's wedding band in a box of old keys. I'd forgotten I still had it. It was just metal, but it felt heavy in my hand, almost wrong, like it didn't belong to this version of me anymore. I turned it over between my fingers, trying to remember what it had once symbolized. Commitment, security, a promise. No, it was a performance, a circle of lies disguised as devotion. I almost threw it out, but something stopped me. Instead, I walked outside, barefoot, and buried it in the backyard beneath the old rose bush that had barely bloomed in years. No ceremony, no words, just surrender. It wasn't about him. It wasn't revenge. It was me telling the universe, I release it. I release him. I release who I had to become to survive that pain. And when I stood up, I felt light. It didn't mean I was fully healed. It meant I was done letting it shape me. The past would always be there, but no longer as a weight. It would exist as a warning, as wisdom, as a scar I wore like armor. Elijah came over that night. He didn't ask questions. He didn't pry. He just took my hand and said, "Whatever part of you buried today, I hope it rests in peace." And I laughed, not because it was funny, but because he got it. He understood that some farewells are quiet, some justice is internal, and some healing doesn't scream. It just settles, like dust after war. Later that night, as we lay in bed, I whispered something I'd never said aloud. "Thank you for not rescuing me." He looked at me, a bit confused, but I meant it. Because I didn't need a rescuer. I needed a witness, a partner, a man who didn't try to fix the cracks, but loved me in the spaces between them. And that was the kind of love that never had to prove itself with lies or lust or loud promises. It was a whisper, a steady presence, a slow, deep truth, a final voiceover, over fading music and soft nighttime visuals. If you're listening to this, and you're still aching, still searching, still scared, please hear me. You are not what happened to you. You are not broken because someone else couldn't love you with honor. You are not unlovable just because one person couldn't recognize your worth. You are becoming. And what's coming next, it will be slower. It will be deeper. And it will never ever be too much.